You won't fight like you never heard. And you could bring down my level of concern. Just need you to tell me we're alright. Tell me we're okay. Yeah. Tell me we're alright. Tell me we're okay. Yeah. Tell me we're alright. Tell me we're okay. Bring down my level of concern. Just need you to tell me we're alright. Tell me we're okay. Yeah.
Well, welcome back, guys. Welcome back. Probably gonna get copyrighted, probably gonna get demonetized for that song. But just this really good song I heard on the radio the other day, and pretty good. Just encapsulates what's going on in society right now with pandemics and things going on right now. So this will be our last recording for the year. This will be the final topic we're going to look at. This was student voted, so if you can't tell what it's about, you just look at the screen. It is past and current pandemics. So I just chose, 8 random pandemics, the ones I thought that affected history the most, and we're just going to break them down one by one and go from there. So without further ado, let's just get to it. Let's just get right into the nitty gritty, the dirty, dirty pandemics, the diseases that changed American culture the most, and world culture. Here we go. So the first one we're going to look at is in the 11th century, and this is leprosy. Now, leprosy is a major disease in the 11th century, so that's like 1000 AD. That's about 1,000 years ago. It was also a major disease, in biblical times. So if if you ever read the Bible, there's a lot of scripture, a lot of basis on leprosy. So we're going to look at this disease, though. It is a slow developing bacterial infection, causes major sores and deformities across the body. And this is it's still a belief kind of today, but especially back in 1,000 years ago, back in biblical times, it's a belief that it only affected those that needed punished by God. So if you were a naughty boy, if you were a naughty girl, if you were a bad person, if you did, maybe you did a bad thing, you lied, you stole something, you were sinful, etc. People, that's what people say you did, and that's how you got this disease. Now, that's completely incorrect. We know nowadays that this disease is actually called Hansen's disease, and you need antibiotics, so you need medicine to get rid of this disease. And if we look at the chart, this is where most cases occurred. If you look, most of the cases are in South America, in the country of Brazil, that type of area. On the left-hand side of the map, and then on the right-hand side, it also occurred majorly in India and in parts of Africa. So what do we know about some of these areas? Well, some of these areas, they struggle with the medicine, they struggle with technology, they struggle with new medical equipment, hospitalizations, things like that. So those places that don't have the technology are going to still be affected by the disease. So the disease, if you look at the other side, there is a picture of a man in the bottom right-hand corner, just a picture of what it kind of does to your skin. If it is left untreated, it can kill you, and it's not contagious either. So like a lot of people back in biblical times, and 1,000 years ago, if you had leprosy, they would throw you out in the street and kind of quarantine you, but that's not going to help you with the disease because it's genetic. Like you're born with the disease. And that's how you get it. It's not transferred from person to person. So this is the first major pandemic, the first major disease that people really witnessed in the world, one of the major ones at least. So the second one we're going to look at is the 1350 bubonic plague, also known as the Black Death. This resulted in the death of 1/3 of the world's population, and it was that major that it actually ended the 100 Years' War between England and France. Now, the 100 Years' War you probably did not hear about, probably did not learn about, but it's a war that sounds exactly what its name is. It was a war that lasted for 100 years between England and France. And once the bubonic plague started in Europe, they called an end to this because, their soldiers were dying. People were being sick. People were dying, like 1 in 3 soldiers or 1 in 3 people in the public were being killed or affected by this disease. So because of that, people stopped warring because, you can't really war when people are sick, right? The disease also stopped the Vikings' conquest of America. So the Vikings were actually exploring America before Columbus. They were here about, 100, 200 years before Columbus, exploring America in ships in Canada. And this put a stop to their exploration. This put a stop to them kind of voyaging across the ocean because of people being sick. And you can see on the map there as well just the areas that this infection and this disease was infecting people, and it was all over Europe. The different colors show you how it expanded. It started in the orange zones, went to green, light yellow, purple, red, and then gray. Those are all areas that were affected by the disease. And then you famously get this nursery rhyme, ring around the rosy, pockets full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. That is a nursery rhyme that was actually made during this time, and it was symbolizing what was going on. People, were getting flowers to make things smell better because people were dying in the streets. They were throwing flowers around. They were wearing masks. They were wearing different types of instruments, different things to try to prevent the disease. And that's where you really get that nursery rhyme. It actually came from the bubonic plague, and kids would actually sing it back then because of what was going on in society. Kind of some crazy stuff about this disease. And just a few facts I'm going to share with you. The disease was spread by fleas, it is spread by blood, and it was specifically spread by mice. So mice would get the actual disease. The fleas would bite the mice to suck out their blood, and then the fleas would start biting people, and through this they would transfer the blood from the mice to the people, and that's how the disease really started. Now nowadays there are a lot of medicine that can be used to prevent this. So the bubonic plague will never really occur as big as it did before because of the modern day disease. And just one other thing I want to share with you, just a couple tips that people had back then. A lot of things people suggested doing back then were actually, getting snakes, getting chickens or pigeons and killing them and rubbing their blood over top of their skin to prevent the disease from occurring. Now this stuff's totally false. If you get an animal and you kill it and you rub the blood all over yourself, it's not going to solve a disease. I mean, that's just dumb. In most cases, it's going to make your infection rate worse because you're spreading germs and diseases around through animals' blood. But people used to do that, and they also actually recommended during this time bathing in urine or sitting in a sewer because they thought those, you would get rid of the stench and you would get rid of all the disease inside your body if you actually put more, diseases and stuff into your body. Kind of crazy stuff. So, just my suggestion, just for COVID-19, just for the coronavirus, please do not bathe in urine or sit in a sewer. Please, 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 please do not do that because that's not going to help you. No. All right, so the next one we're going to look at is in 1492, the next major pandemic, and this one was from the Columbian Exchange. Now, this is one of the biggest moments in world history. And what the Columbian Exchange is, it sounds kind of, if you use context clues, it has Columbus's name in it. So this is really, another word for this could be, the arrival of Columbus to America. Because if you know the little rhyme, maybe you learned it before, but in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. This happened the same year Columbus arrived into the America. And Columbus came from Spain. So this is the arrival of the Spanish into America and into the Caribbean. And when the Spanish came, they carried a bunch of diseases with them. They carried smallpox, measles, and parts of the bubonic plague that did not disappear. This is, like I said, named after Columbus. And what this did is they started bringing over things. They started bringing over fruits. They started bringing over cattle. And they started bringing over different items. And when they brought these items over from Spain, they also brought diseases with them. So when they arrived into the Caribbean, there were over 60,000 Tainos. Those are Native Americans. And from, in 50 years after their arrival, there were 60,000 on the islands. There were only a little over 500 left after 50 years. So, in 1520, the Aztec Empire started to fall because of the Columbian Exchange. And some people attribute, climate change and different things happening because of the deaths of so many Native Americans. So just simply what happened is when Columbus came over, they brought all these diseases, and when they started interacting with Native Americans who were not exposed to the diseases, they started getting sick and they started dying in millions and millions of people. So it is estimated that over 56 million Native Americans were killed from diseases from the Columbian Exchange. Um, and because of that, some scientists are saying now that climate change actually occurred a little bit more in the past because Native Americans were not there to farm the land and produce different types of goods for the people. So this is really, really important. 1492, the Columbian Exchange. You're going to learn about this in world history again. And it really changed, not just Native American lives. It also changed everything in the world because of the different shipping of products. This is actually how we, got bananas. This is how we got horses. This is how we got cattle back and forth because of this exchange from Europe over to America. And just so you know, here is a picture of some of the items that were being exchanged. Here's a little diagram. They're sending over cattle, diseases, peaches, pears, different types of fruits from Europe over to America, and then America is sending back different items. And this whole exchange from the two countries is going to result in, the deaths of Native Americans and another pandemic as well. Okay, so we're going to look real quick at the cholera pandemic. The next one I wanted to look at, this one is cholera is a disease that is still going on. It's still being affected today. It is a bacterial infection, and there have been several pandemics over the last 150 years. Now, the main way that you get cholera is from poop. Okay, you get cholera from drinking water that is infected by poop. So you might be asking, why would anyone drink water that has poop in it or parts of poop in it? Well, mainly why people did that back then is because they didn't have sanitation, they didn't have water. They didn't have springs and fresh water, they did not have bottled water back then. A lot of people got their water from streams, and if if you live out on the farm or you live, close to town or anything like that, and there's a stream and there's a farm above you, like it was, 100, 200, 300 years ago, a lot of cows don't really care where they poop. Horses don't really care where they poop, and they might do that. They might defecate right into a stream, and you're downstream collecting some water for the house, and then you drink that water, and that is how you get very, very sick. So cholera pandemics happened all the way up into the 1950s, 1960s in certain areas. The one that we were going to look at first, this is where it first started in the 1800s, and you can see on the map it really started over in India and Asia, but it is going to spread all the way from Britain, Spain, Africa, China, and into the Americas. There is a modern day vaccine for the cholera, so a lot of people never get it anymore, and a lot of people don't drink water that's tainted anymore either. But you just got to be mindful of this. Make sure you have clean drinking water, but you're not really going to see this disease anymore at all. Here's just a famous sign. This is a notice, preventatives of cholera. It's really saying be temperate, be watchful when you eat and drink different things. And, but a lot of people, even though they put up signs like this, even though, there were notices up about this, there are going to be several cholera pandemics throughout the next couple of years. Like this is still going to happen all the way to the 1950s. And we get this famous scene here, this famous picture of death riding around all over different places because of the cholera pandemic, because people are still drinking water that is not sanitized. All right, so we got a couple more. Here we go. We're going to keep on rolling. This is one of the most famous ones. This pandemic, not this cholera pandemic. This one is the 1918 Spanish flu. And this pandemic, this is a major disease. This is the one that we're really looking at right now. And we're comparing COVID-19 to this one. This disease happened 100 years ago, 1918, the Spanish flu. And this is an avian-borne flu resulting in 50 million deaths across the world. Reports of it were first seen in Spain, which is how you get the name from this, but it is now generally believed by scientists that this did not originate in Spain, that it actually came from different parts of the world at the same time. Um, and the crazy thing is this is like a modern day, pandemic. This is a pandemic that a lot of people are comparing the one to that we are in now. The only difference is though, and the important difference is that 100 years ago they didn't have penicillin. 100 years ago they didn't have hospitals that they could put people into. So not to worry anyone, but I highly, highly doubt we're ever going to see a 50 million people, 50 million death count ever again. But just so you know, this Spanish flu did result in the closing of schools, churches, and theaters. It did result in this picture here you see with tents being formed, with the Red Cross setting up different types of stations. Here you see the picture as well of people wearing masks and things like that. So this like a lot of people relate this to what's going on today. Important thing to note though, by 1 year later, the virus disappeared and was not heard of and not seen of since. So for 1 year, this kind of ravaged the planet and then it kind of disappeared. And just important to know as well that this did come from chickens. This did come from chickens. So just important to know that this is an avian-borne flu. Avian's just, the scientific term for birds. So this did result from chickens, and we do get diseases from different types of animals. So that's why, if you eat a lot of meat, if you eat different types of animals, make sure that you cook them well, make sure that you clean them, so you do not get sick from them. Okay, the next one we're going to look at is 1981. Now, this is a very recent one. This one we're going to look at is HIV and AIDS. Okay, and this is a virus that weakens people's immune system. And how it does that is it works by destroying T cells in the body. So T cells are a type of cell that the specific job of a T cell is to kill other viruses. So if you don't have a T cell that works, you're not going to be able to get rid of viruses. So HIV is a virus that really destroys the immune system. It destroys the body's way of being able to cope with viruses. So if you get something like the flu, if you get the common cold, and you have AIDS, HIV, you cannot fight it off because your body has nothing to protect you. So people really don't die specifically from HIV, AIDS. They actually die from viruses that attack your body because it can't cope with it. The virus is believed to have come from a chimpanzee virus from, gorillas, monkeys, primates from West Africa in the 1920s. It is spread from body fluids, so it is spread through the blood, and it hit the U.S. majorly in the 1980s. Nowadays, it is estimated to have over 35 million people dying from this epidemic, and there is no known cure discovered to help you with HIV or AIDS. So you're not really going to get this too frequently unless you have like physical contact with blood to blood. And most of the time that's not going to happen. Like if you need blood like in the hospital or something, a lot of people are going to study it and they're going to, test out the blood to make sure it has nothing in it. Really, the only real way you're going to get this is from blood transfusion. So if you have like needles or something, like if you ever need to like pop a blister or something, I don't know, make sure you clean the needles, things like that, or you don't reuse them frequently with other people and things like that. But really, this disease, it's still common, but it's kind of harder to get because people actually know, how it's transferred now through blood and body fluids. But back in the 80s, this was a really, really crazy virus going on. And you can actually see here in this image protests of what was going on in the White House at the time. This is outside, the Capitol, where they're having protests. And here's just a little timeline of what happened. So you can see this was affecting people in the 1920s, and it is going all the way up to the day. It was mainly, though, occurring in the 1980s is when this really peaked. And there were major protests about this disease, too. A lot of people saying we need research, not hysteria, to help us out with AIDS. And like I said, AIDS and HIV, it's more uncommon now, but it still is happening. And it's just important, to be mindful of if you get in contact with other person's blood or something like that, don't touch it. Let someone else clean it up, or make sure that you're very careful with it, because you can actually get diseases from blood, not just from humans but animals, as we are also seeing from these recordings. Okay, so we got two more. The first one, the next to last one I want to look at is the 2003 SARS epidemic. Now, this is a virus in 2003, so not too long ago, and it is believed to have spread from bats to humans. Now, what SARS is, it does cause respiratory problems. Quarantine efforts proved to be effective back in 2003, and the virus did disappear. Now, this virus was not nearly as widespread as what we see today or in the past. Important to note, though, China again is blamed for this virus, just like COVID-19, just like the one we're seeing right now. China was blamed for this one as well. That's where the virus first started appearing. But it was really important with 2003 with SARS, because the virus, like this epidemic, did help us work to improve our response times to other viruses in the future, like H1N1 in 2009 and Ebola and Zika. So this kind of opened up our minds, at least in the country, that we need a better response time in case there are future viruses like we have now. But you can see here is a picture of people, standing in lines outside airports and things like that with masks on as well. Here's a picture of a map that you can look at too, where the epidemic really spread. You can see in the yellow parts are the major parts of where it was. And you can also see in this image of how kids are kind of returning to school, but they're wearing masks, and this is over in Asia. So it's just important to know, that what's going on now is nothing really new. We're still going through this today. We're still kind of learning how to look at viruses and things like that. All right, so the final slide, the final one we're going to look at is the one that's going on right now, the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. So, important things to know. March 11th, 2020, a couple of weeks ago, they did declare this a pandemic, the World Health Organization. The virus, if you don't know, was first discovered in China, and there was a whistleblower. So the virus was first discovered before Thanksgiving last year, and there was a whistleblower, Dr. Li Wanglang, and he was a whistleblower. He was someone who actually found out about this virus before it was released to the public. So he was researching the virus, he started seeing it in different people, and he started telling Chinese officials that this virus could really spread to a lot of different people. We should get it looked at. We should get it researched. And what happened, though, is mysteriously, whether you believe conspiracy theories or not, he did die later from COVID-19, but he wanted to get more pressure on China to kind of report these ideas. Okay, there are no current vaccines for COVID-19, as you probably know. Some of the symptoms I just put on here as well. I'm not going to read over all of them because you guys are getting hammered enough with this in daily news. But if you have any symptoms, make sure you kind of isolate yourself. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. Drink a lot of orange juice. Drink a lot of orange juice. I think that really helps. Just vitamin C. It just helps me a lot. But there is no current vaccines at all for this. And just want to tell you real quick what the world stocks are doing. So this is a chart of sort of what we're worrying about in the future, like how are we going to recover from this? How are we going to get our economy back running? Well, there you can see this chart. This is the red graph. Now this is a little bit, this is a couple weeks old, a couple months old. I'm not really actually sure when the graph was taken, but I don't think it's recent. But this is actually showing the upward trend of infections and the economy going down. Now, the economy is starting to, rise up again, and there are a lot of places starting to reopen. So, I think the virus is starting to slowly go away. It's just important that, you continue, you just continue washing your hands and being vigilant with things like that. And this will eventually go away. That's just one thing I want people to know, that this is nothing new. This is something that we had to face several times before, viruses and pandemics. So we'll get through this just like we did all the other times. I just wanted to talk too about some protests, though. There are a couple protests going on across the country. People protesting about, saying that it's not as serious as it is, and then some people saying it's way seriouser than what other people think it is. So there's a lot of different protests. There's a lot of different ideas going on. I just want to say, my advice is just try not to take it all in. Try to find something outside. Try to find something to keep your mind off of what's going on, because if you're constantly watching TV and you're constantly watching the media and people go back and forth, you're gonna go nuts. Like, you're gonna go absolutely crazy. Um, it's just a crazy time that we're living in right now. But we're gonna get through it. We're gonna get through it definitely. I'm just going to finish off with a couple conspiracy theories. There are a couple conspiracy theories of what's going on right now. We have no idea, who started this. We don't know if it came from animals. Some scientists saying it came from animals. There are some people that say China created this and released it to us to destroy our economy. There are some people that say Bill Gates created it. There's a bunch of different people, that are saying different types of ideas. But the general thing is I don't think, don't read into it too much. Just try to, try not to think about it too much, I guess. Try reading books, try doing different things to keep your mind occupied. Because if you don't, you're just going to go crazy, and, no one wants to go crazy. So, all right. I hope you all enjoyed this. I know I kind of rambled on about a couple of them, but hope you got something out of it. It's been a blast this year. I'm probably going to do 2 extra credit activities for the rest of the year. But it's been really, really fun. And, if you want to stay in contact, I'm going to try to keep uploading things online. So if you want to stay in contact, you want to learn more about some more history things, I might do a couple, recordings over the summer just to keep my YouTube skills up and get a little bit better. So, yep, hope everyone's doing well. And I'll see you for the next one. All right, bye-bye.